It is from this office that volunteers are working to elect Hillary Clinton to serve as President of the United States. It is here that we have implemented our voter engagement project designed to register voters and to educate citizens on the importance of exercising this right and on making their voices heard. We promote and work for our endorsed candidates in this space, where those who are dedicated to the Democratic Party principles can find a place to meet and move our country forward. After all, as Hillary Clinton said, we are stronger together.
It's really wonderful to be here because we're all so excited, right? Yes. We're like 30-some days away from the election, and I know that the people in this room are going to make sure that we make it happen. And we're so happy that Kamala is joining us. Well, isn't she a great candidate that we're going to have? Our next senator from California, a U.S. senator, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to be able to introduce someone in my family that is running for the Congress of the United States of America. And many of you in this room came up to Emilio and said to him, "You have to run." And he said, "Oh my gosh, should I do that?" And then I reminded him that when I left my teaching job in Stockton, California, to come to Delano, California, when Cesar and I started the movement, going through divorce with 7 children at that time, not knowing where our next meal was going to come from. And I said to him, "You know what? Sometimes you have to take risks, big risks." And I did that, and I've never regretted that decision ever. And of course, Emilio had to, with my other children, had to suffer that decision. Raised very, very poor, raised in poverty. And I think that gave him the strength and that resourcefulness that he needed. And so in his work, he has been always working for the community good, working for affordable care, affordable housing for people, daycare centers, working also for community clinics, representing people who have been had wage theft, workers that they tried not to steal their wages, small businesses who were taken opportunity of by others. So everything that he has done is to help people. And I think that, as I said to Emilio, as an attorney, he was always working for the common good of the people and representing people on discrimination cases of age, race, and gender. And he was preparing himself for this moment to run for Congress. He didn't know it, I didn't know it, but you know what? The universe knew it, right? The universe knew it, the universe put him in that position, and we are so happy that we think that he is on the right track, he's going to be able to make it. I can just say to you, he's an attorney, he's a very serious person, and he's always just been very considerate and helpful to everybody. And I think that really gives him the qualifications that he will be a very, very great congressperson. So I want to thank all of you for supporting him, and of course for supporting Kamala, for supporting Hillary, and all of our Democrats that we had running for office. So please give them by the way, my kids, like Emilio, they never had play days. They had picket line days, right? There's a picture when people were marching to Sacramento, and there's a picture of a little boy holding up the cross. And that was Emilio on that long march, So he worked in the farmer movement. His first job was to collect the garbage, okay? He was a garbage man, him and Paul Chavez. And then he went to work in a print shop, then he went to negotiating school, arbitration school, represented the union, negotiated contracts when he was only in his 20s. And so he worked with the Cesar Chavez Foundation for 17 years, okay? Working right alongside with Cesar. And so I think he is really prepared, really qualified. Please welcome Emilio Jesus Huerta.
Man, these are huge footsteps to follow, right? Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. I couldn't come from and ask for a better community to support my campaign. As many of you know, I was active with the Tehachapi Mountain Democratic Club for many years, a club that my Uncle Marshall started, my mom's brother, and one of my coaches from high school. And then when I moved down to Bakersfield, I became active with the Central Committee here and really got to know folks here. And never did I believe or think that I would be on stage 30 days from a major presidential election and have my name on the Democratic ticket for Congress. And so it's because of all of you, and of course my mother, that have given me the encouragement, the support, the financial support, that have come out and walked and have been there with me from day one. Nobody ever came and said, "Are you sure that's what you want to do? Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" If they did, I probably would have done it, right? But I think the reasons why we're doing this are very clear. We have some of the worst air in the country here in the Valley, and it affects our lives on a daily basis. And more importantly, it affects the lives of our children and our children to come. And then we have some of the worst water. So when children are going to school and in rural communities, the 45 rural communities, starting with East Bakersfield, Arvin, Lamont, all the way up into western Fresno County, towns like Fireball, Mendota that doesn't even have a bank. So when I was on the credit union board, we fought to open our first credit union in Lamont. To this day, it's the only financial institution in Lamont. How can communities grow? How can people begin to talk about savings and financial planning if there's not even a bank in the town? And so when you go around looking at these small towns, farm worker towns, and you talk about the future of our valley, we talk about what is going to happen to be able to provide educational opportunities to our children. Do you guys know that in the 21st Congressional District, that college graduation rates are less than 10%? And in small towns, like where Jose Gorola is running for mayor, the graduation rates are less than 3%, 4%. So again, how can communities grow? How can we build our economy? How can we diversify our economy if we don't give our children the educational opportunities to compete on a global market, to attract new businesses to our community? That's the only way we're going to change the Valley. We have to change the Valley by electing good representatives and then going to Washington and reminding people that we are one of the richest economies in the world here in the Central Valley with ag and oil, but we want our fair share. We want Washington to remember to give us the same safety net, to give us the same incentives as they have given to agricultural and the oil industries. All we're asking is for the same opportunity to have a seat at the table, and that's why I'm running for Congress. So thank you. So this afternoon I have the honor of introducing a great person, not just our soon-to-be first African-American U.S. Senate, first South Asian, U.S. Senator. She was elected to be our first, our California State Attorney General, and first woman in 2010, right? Yeah. She took office 2011, and right away she took on Wall Street. When big banks wanted her to accept $4 billion as settlement, for the calamity and the chaos that they caused, she said no. And she got other states also to back out of discussions that they were having. And she fought, and what did you get, 18 billion?
It turned out to be 20 when we counted it all.
By the time she was over, right, $20 billion that came back to California to her. And a good portion of that, what, 12 billion, 14 billion?
Principal reduction.
Principal reduction, mortgage modifications, short sales. So homeowners receive direct benefits from that. I was former board chair of Self-Help Federal Credit Union, and I just resigned in January. And so we saw the positive impact. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of families in California were able to keep their home. The largest single asset that they have, and because of Ms. Harris, they were able to keep their home. And so that is why we need a U.S. Senator that is going to go to Washington and not only fight for California, but to fight for working families throughout the United States. And we know with her leadership and with the leadership of our next president, Ms. Hillary Clinton, that we're going to be able to turn this country around. We're going to get rid of the do-nothing Congress, and we're going to be able to elect leaders that are really going to fight for working families here in California and throughout the country. So it is with my great honor to present our next U.S. Senator, Ms. Kamala Harris.
Emilio Huerta.
Yeah. Dolores, oh my God, the godmother. I am so thrilled to be here in support of my friend. We know he comes from good stock. He's got impeccable genes. We know that. But we also know that he is, because of who his family is, he is, in person, the American dream. He is everything we promise to be as a country. If you work hard, if you participate, if you care about people, if you take care of people, in particular those in need, that we will provide a path. You are an extraordinary man and an extraordinary leader, and I look forward, God willing, to the day you and I can work together in Washington, D.C. So it is so wonderful to be back in Bakersfield. I see people in this room who I have worked with on the foreclosure crisis. We all got together, talking with homeowners, talking with the folks of this beautiful region of our state about their needs and their specific needs. And so I'm just gonna, let's deal with the elephant in the middle of the room while we're here. The presidential. Pardon the pun. There is an elephant in the middle of the room. So here's how I've been thinking about this election cycle, and I'm going to say this in a way that is really about highlighting the importance of electing Emilio Huerta to the United States Congress. It is critical. I believe we are right now at a real pivotal moment in the history of our country. You know, many of you know my background. My parents met when they were active in the civil rights movement. My sister Maya and I, we joke we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full-time marching and shouting. Right? This, I believe, is a moment like that moment when my parents met. It's a moment that is like a moment that many of us have had in our personal lives. That moment where circumstances require us to look in a mirror and with furrowed brow ask a question: who are we? I believe this is that moment in time for our country, where collectively we are being required to look in a mirror, and with furrowed brow we are asking a question: who are we? And folks, my Bakersfield family, let me tell you, I believe the answer to that question is a good one. I believe we are a great country. And I believe part of what makes us great is that we were founded on certain ideals, including the ideals that were articulated in the words that were spoken in 1776, that we are all and should be treated as equals, including the ideals that tell us to reject the notion that someone should be denied entry to our country because of the God they worship. The ideals that tell us we will fight against the proposition that someone cannot be a judge in a court of these United States because their parents were born in Mexico. Ideals that tell us it is purely offensive to who we are to suggest that if we disagree with our opponent should be shot. This is a moment in time that is challenging us to stand up and fight for our ideals. And so that brings me then to the thought, and now she's going to say with a bit of bravado, about who we are as Californians. As a proud daughter of California, I will say I believe in that old adage: so goes California, goes the nation. Right. We remain the state that people around the country look at and to for what progress looks like, what change looks like. We are that place that people around the country, if not the world, know is completely unburdened by what has been and instead motivated by what can be. This election on November 8th is going to require us to stand up and fight for the ideals of our country. And Emilio is particularly well situated to be a great leader, not only for this state, but this country on these issues. Think about what is at stake in terms of what we have an outsized impact on. We have an outsized it will impact us and investment in the issue of passing comprehensive immigration reform. Now let's think about why. California has the largest number of immigrants, documented and undocumented, of any state in the country. There are approximately 12 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. And what troubles us so is that these supposed leaders have gotten away almost with conflating criminal justice policy with immigration policy, as though they are the same thing. They are not. These are two separate policy areas with their own variables and pathologies and problems and solutions. And yes, there will be that tragic case, thankfully rare, of the case that happened in San Francisco, where a young woman was killed. And the prosecutor in me says there is no question. When the evidence proves that guy guilty, lock him up for as long as we can. But it is irresponsible to suggest that we would craft public policy for almost 12 million people around our collective outrage around one man's conduct. Equally irresponsible is to allow this discussion to be framed around this absolutely misinformed term, illegal alien. I'm going to tell you guys, I started my career in the Alameda County DA's office that Earl Warren once ran. I have personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. I have seen some of the worst of crime. I have seen some of the worst of criminal behavior. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal, and we have to correct course on that conversation. Let's look at the issue of water. He is going to be an extraordinary leader in bringing back to our state, this region, and the whole state, the infrastructure dollars that are necessary for us to support all that we need to do. One, in rejecting the false choice that you're either in favor of the environment or you're in favor of our farmers. We can be both.
Yes.
We can be both. The other point is to understand we've got to bring back the infrastructure dollars to do the work we all know has to be done. We need much more reliable and sustainable sources of water in our state and in our country. And on this point of climate change, despite those science deniers that you and I are going to have to fight against in Washington, D.C., in spite of those science deniers, one thing California, again, has an outsized stake in is the issue of climate change. We know it is real, and on the issue of climate change, we are both the canary in the coal mine, and we will offer the solution. So let's think about it. More reliable and sustainable sources of water. We've got to diversify water policy. We have to put equal weight into conservation and recycling and capturing stormwater and storage of water and desalination. We've got to do it in a way that understands it's a matter of public health. So this region of our country produces 50% of the fruits and vegetables consumed by the entire country, right here in California and in this region of our state. So it's about our economic engine. It's also about literally the fruits and vegetables that half the United States consumes. And it's a public health issue. As a species, we require clean water to drink. So it's a public health issue. The other issue, which Emilio talks about and is a leader already on, and will continue to be a leader when we elect him, is understanding this issue of water, and in particular building up the infrastructure around diversifying water policy, is about helping our economy. The brothers and sisters from labor and the building trades are here, and they know, and we know, when we bring back the infrastructure dollars to build up our infrastructure around all that we need to do, that's about jobs, building that infrastructure, and that's about elevating our economy. And then the issue of water is also an issue that is about national security. Because just think about it. Right now, wars are being fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water. Let's let California lead the way for the nation and the globe. And so I'm going to close by saying this about Emilio. You guys, you know, sometimes when we've got a jewel in our back pocket, we're just so used to it that we don't realize how incredibly special it is. We have a jewel right here in Emilio Huerta. This election is going to be close. We can take nothing for granted. So I'm here in Bakersfield to support him and to ask you, my friends, to help the rest of the state by making sure we elect him. Let's not look back in 30 days and have any regrets. And let's remember that when he points out, when we point out, when Dolores points out what's not working in our country, when we are critical of what's not working, the motivation is pure. And that's to point out what's not working so we can fix it. When he points these things out, when we talk about these, it's sometimes interesting how some people will say, well, when you're critical of what's not working in our country, that might invite a question about one's love of country. I reject that notion. In fact, I say there are two definitions of what it means to be a patriot. There is the definition that suggests you defend your country whatever it does. And then there is the kind of patriot I believe us all to be. The kind that will fight each and every day for the ideals of our country, and that is what this election is about, and that's why we have got to elect Emilio Huerta.